The farmer rescues the wounded dog with puppies and takes them to his farm. Some time later, these puppies return, and what they do with this farmer is heartbreaking.
Ison was a simple man, owner of a farm in the heart of the countryside. He was used to the typical sounds of the place. The wind moving the trees, the singing of the birds, and even the distant moaning of the cows. But that afternoon, while he was walking through the property, something caught his attention. A weak and desperate ladder that came from the forest. It was not normal. Ison stopped, put his hands in the pockets of his pants and stayed listening, trying to locate where that anguishing sound came from. Without thinking twice, he took his flashlight and followed the noise. With each step, the thief became clearer and more urgent. His heart began to accelerate, a mixture of concern and curiosity. And then he saw her. Behind some bushes, tied to a tree, was a thin dog, with dirty fur and visible wounds. Around him, 5 small puppies, all crouched, trembling with fear and cold. Ison was paralyzed for a moment, trying to process the scene. Who would be able to do something so cruel? The dog's eyes met hers, and it was then when Ison felt a knot in her chest. She didn't grunt or try to bite, as if asking for help. "Easy, girl, I'll get you out of here," he said in the calmest voice he could. Carefully, he approached. He took out a knife he always carried with him and cut the rope that tied the poor dog. She didn't react, just lowered her head as if she knew she was finally free. The puppies began to move, still wary, but soon followed their mother, who was now walking beside Ison. He looked at them and sighed. "They will come with me. I will not leave them here." Calmly, Ison placed the puppies in an improvised basket and returned home, with the dog walking slowly by his side. Deep down, he knew that this encounter was going to change his life, although he still did not understand how. "Come on, kids," he murmured as he opened the door to his house. Now they are part of the family. This is how a story that Ison would never forget began, and that would change his life forever. When Ison arrived home with the dog and the puppies, all he could think was, "I must take care of them now." She took an old towel from the closet, extended it on the floor of the porch, and placed the puppies there, one by one. They were so small and weak that they could barely emit any sound, only a few wheezing. The mother, who she decided to call Bella, lay down next to them as if she wanted to protect them from everything, despite being so hurt. Ison filled a bucket with warm water and began to clean Bella's wounds. She remained motionless, looking at him closely. At times, Ison spoke in a low voice. "I know it hurts, girl, but everything will be fine." He didn't have any specific medication for animals, but he did what he could with what he had. He cleaned the wounds, improvised bandages with pieces of clean cloth, and offered him a little warm milk, which Bella drank slowly. The puppies, one by one, began to wriggle closer to their mother, as if they knew that they were finally safe. Ison watched the scene with a mixture of relief and worry. He thought while caressing Bella's head. He knew it would be difficult, but he had no intention of giving up. After making sure that Bella was comfortable, Ethan improvised a shelter for the little family. He took an old wooden box, covered it with blankets, and placed it in a protected porch corner. When he put Bella and the puppies there, it was as if she understood that this was her new home. He settled down carefully, licking each of the puppies while they slept crouched. Ison sat in his. Bella, lying down with her puppies, looked at him before closing her eyes. It was a look of gratitude, and for Ison that was enough. The following days, the routine at the farm changed completely. Ison now had constant company. Bella, although still recovering, was always close. If he went to the barn to check the tools, she followed him, walking slowly by his side. When Ison sat down to rest on the porch, Bella was lying on her feet, as if she were on guard. The puppies, on the other hand, filled the place of life. Small and clumsy, they strolled among themselves while exploring the terrain around the house. Ethan laughed every time someone tried to climb something and fell. "They are naughty," he said, moving his head, but clearly delighted with the disorder they caused. He even named them all. Scout, the most curious; Daisy, the most shy; Max, the oldest; Ruby, the smartest; and Woody, who always seemed to want to be close to his mother. Over time, Bella began to recover. Her wounds slowly healed, and her fur, previously opaque, began to shine. She could already play with the puppies and even run a little behind them in the yard. Eisen noticed something special about Bella. She was not just a survivor, she was a leader. When a puppy moved too far away, it was enough to look at a soft sharp. Before, there was only silence and the typical loneliness of the countryside. Now, Eisen listened to the puppies playing until they were exhausted, and then the soft sound of Bella getting ready to sleep. He realized that he no longer felt so alone. There was something comforting about knowing that they were there, so dependent on how he began to depend on them. Bella also proved to be more than just a dog. One day, while Eisen was distracted in the barn, she began to bark hard, something that was not common. He ran to see what was going on and found Bella standing near the henhouse, facing a sparrow that was trying to sneak up on him. Without a doubt, Bella grinned and ran to the intruder, protecting the hens. Eisen was impressed. "You have more courage than many people, Bella," he said, laughing, as she returned to his side moving her tail. Little by little, Bella became more than a pet. She was a companion, a protector. Eisen knew that friendship was special, and the bond between them only strengthened every day. Bella and her puppies brought something that he didn't even know he lacked: joy, company, and a purpose that he hadn't felt in a long time. Before continuing, make sure to be subscribed to the channel and like the video to continue watching more animal stories. Everything seemed to be going well on the farm. Bella was stronger every day and the puppies filled the place with life and mischief. They say that before she had a lonely routine. Now he was smiling frequently. It was already when he saw Max trying to bite the strings of his boots or Daisy running behind the chickens as if it were a game. But one morning, something unexpected happened. Eisen left home early, as he always did, to feed Bella and the puppies. He had a cup with leftovers from the dinner of the previous night, imagining how they would run towards the food. However, when he reached the improvised fence where the puppies slept, he stopped suddenly. Something was wrong. The space was empty. The 5 puppies had disappeared. Eisen called, his voice full of concern. He looked around and found Bella nearby, standing, looking at him. There were no signs of despair in her, but she did not show the usual joy when she saw Eisen. She knelt next to her, trying to understand what had happened. Eisen's thoughts began to run. Could it have been a predator during the night? A fox? Or someone broke into the property and took the puppies? He looked at Bella, waiting for an answer as if she could speak. But she simply turned her gaze, as if she were hiding something. The anxiety invaded him. Eisen began to search the entire farm. He checked every corner, the barn, among the bushes, even near the river at the bottom of the property. He called for the names of the puppies, waiting to hear some sound, a barking, anything. But the silence was absolute. Bella followed Eisen closely, walking by his side, but without giving any clues. After hours of searching, Eisen stopped and took a deep breath. He looked at Bella, who seemed too calm for the situation. "You took them, right?" he asked, not with anger, but with a mixture of despair and doubt. Bella simply bowed her head, observing him with that deep look that Eisen had learned to respect. The rest of the day passed looking for signs, footprints, a trace that indicated where the puppies could have gone. But nothing made sense. No clue. It was only at the end of the afternoon, when the sun began to set, that Bella began to behave strangely. She walked away, stopping from time to look at Eisen, as if she wanted him to follow her. He frowned, without knowing what to think, but he decided to follow her. However, before he could go far, Bella stopped. He looked at him, turned around and returned home, without revealing any secret. He said he was even more intrigued. "What are you hiding?" Bella murmured, while the bitch was sitting in the porch as if nothing had happened. That night, he said, he barely could sleep. He wondered if Bella really had abandoned her own puppies, something that seemed impossible to him after everything he had seen of her. Or maybe there was something he could not understand. The doubts consumed him, but he knew that, in some way, the answer would come. He just didn't imagine how that would change everything. The next few days after the puppies disappeared, They were strange and silent in the farm. Ison continued with his routine, but it was impossible to ignore the emptiness that the little ones had left. Before, the yard was always full of games, thunders, and that chaotic and cheerful energy that only puppies can bring. Now, everything seemed too quiet. It was as if the farm had lost part of its soul. Bella continued by Ison's side, but there was something different about her. Despite following him and lying on his feet on the porch, his eyes were always attentive, as if he were waiting for something. Ison felt a mixture of feelings that he could not explain. Frustration, sadness, and, above all, a feeling of betrayal. He tried not to think about it, but he could not help but ask. He really abandoned his own puppies. He did not want to believe it. The loyalty and care that he saw always showed towards the little ones did not coincide with that idea. Even so, the doubt swallowed him. Every time he looked at her, a question was trapped in his throat. Why? But he never said anything out loud. He only sighed and passed his hand over his head, as if he wanted to believe that, somehow, everything made sense. One afternoon, while he was sitting on the porch, Ison realized how uncomfortable that silence was. Before, he had never felt alone on the farm. The work and the sounds of the field always filled his days. But now it was different. He was surprised to see the empty fence, waiting to hear the puppies running back, but nothing happened. He tried to occupy his mind with other things. He began to repair more on the pending homework at home. He spent more time taking care of the garden and checking the closeness of the property. Bella accompanied him, as always, but even his presence felt different. He was more serious, more distant. He didn't know if it was just his impression or if Bella also missed the puppies. One night, while he was getting ready to sleep, Ison heard a noise coming from outside. His heart accelerated for a moment. He ran towards the door and looked at the patio. But all he saw was Bella, sitting in the middle of the grass, looking into the darkness. It was as if she was waiting for something or someone. Ison observed her for a few minutes before returning inside. But that image was recorded in his memory. In the background, Ison knew that Bella was not like any other dog. He had something special, something that he still could not fully understand. Even so, the absence of the puppies weighed. He missed them, he missed the joy they brought. No matter how hard he tried to hide it, that loneliness made him question himself if he had done enough, if he had failed in any way. He looked at Bella, who was now lying on her bed, and said in a low voice, "Would you give me some answer?" Bella looked up at him, but remained silent. It was a firm look, almost as if to say, "Trust me." Although he didn't understand, that was what Ison decided to do. He didn't know where all this would lead him, but, for some reason, he felt like this story wasn't over yet. Bella wasn't the type to give up, and maybe he wasn't supposed to either. It was a night like any other, or at least that seemed. The sky was clear, illuminated by a full moon that bathed the farm of Ison with a silver light. He had finished his tasks and was in the barn storing some tools. Everything was quiet and beautiful as usual, was close, sitting at the entrance of the barn, watching as always. Suddenly, Ison heard a sound that was not typical of the field. Steps. They were not light like those of an animal. They were heavy, as if someone tried not to be heard, but without much success. Ison froze for a moment with his heart racing. He took a flashlight and turned slowly, trying to identify where the noise came from. Bella was standing now, alert, with her ears raised and body tense. It was evident that she had also noticed that something was not right. Before she could do something, 3 men emerged from the shadows, armed with sticks and knives. "And no one will be hurt," said one of them with a harsh and threatening voice. He stepped back, slowly raising his hands. He knew he couldn't face it alone. They were there to steal, and he only had seconds to decide what to do. Bella began to grunt under a deep sound that seemed to come from the bottom of her throat. "Shut up, you dog, before I do it," said another of the men, pointing the stick at her. Ethan tried to speak calmly. "Calm down, you don't have to do this. I'll do whatever you want." But Bella did not back down. On the contrary, she seemed to be waiting for the right moment to act. Suddenly, before one of the men could get any closer, Bella released a loud thud that seemed to resonate throughout the farm. It was the kind of sound that not only scares, but paralyzes. And then something incredible happened. From the darkness, a chorus of grunts and thuds filled the air around her. Ison looked around, confused, while the thieves turned in all directions, trying to understand what was happening. A herd of dogs emerged running through the farm. There were many of them, and everyone seemed to follow Bella, as if she were the leader. The dogs advanced with impressive determination, growling and surrounding the men. One of them tried to attack Bella, but she was faster, dodging and throwing herself precisely, making her drop the stick. The thieves were not prepared for that. They screamed and tried to defend themselves, but the herd surrounded them, forcing them to retreat. "Let's get out of here," screamed one of them, running towards the exit. The others followed him, leaving everything behind and running through the field without looking back. Ison stayed still trying to process what had just happened. Bella came back to her side, shuddering, but helpless. The other dogs also approached, forming a semicircle around Ison, as if they were protecting him. He looked at Bella, who was watching him with that deep look of always, but this time it seemed to say something different. "I told you to trust me. You saved my life, girl," said Ison, crouching down to caress her. The gratitude and admiration she felt for her were indescribable. She looked at the herd around her and, for the first time, understood that Bella had not been alone all this time. She had allies, a family that seemed to emerge from nowhere, but that clearly had always been close. That night, Ison understood that Bella was much more than he imagined. She was not just a survivor, she was a leader, a protector. I knew that this story still had much more to reveal. After that night, Ison could not stop thinking about what happened. The way Bella led the herd was something I had never seen before. She seemed to know exactly what to do, as if she had been training for that moment. But there was a question that did not stop the mind of Ison. Where did those dogs come from? They have been with Bella all this time. She decided that she needed answers. Observed Bella up close. She seemed more relaxed now, but she kept that air close, as if she were waiting for something. That was when Ison noticed a pattern. In the afternoons, when he was busy in the field, Bella moved away. Always at the same time, she disappeared for a few hours and then returned as if nothing had happened. Ison decided to follow her. On the third day, when Bella began to move away, Ison took his flashlight and a coat and followed her at a certain distance. Being careful not to be seen, Bella walked with confidence, as if she knew exactly where she was going. She entered the forest surrounding the farm, and Ison followed her, dodging branches and dry leaves so as not to make noise. After a few minutes, she began to hear sounds, low grunts, soft thunders. It was a sound that she did not hear since the dogs disappeared. When Bella stopped, Ison hid behind a tree. It was then that she saw him. In a small clearing, there were the 5 puppies, Scout, Daisy, Max, Ruby and Woody, all alive and apparently well. They were bigger, stronger, surrounded by the same dogs that had helped the thieves flee. Bella entered the clearing and was received with enthusiasm by the puppies that ran towards her. Ison stayed still, unable to believe what he was seeing. Everything began to make sense. Bella had not abandoned the puppies. He had taken them to a safe place. He probably felt that there was some danger in the farm, maybe the same thieves, and decided to protect his children in the only way he could, trusting in the herd. Ison came out of behind the tree and Bella immediately noticed his presence. She didn't seem surprised. On the contrary, he approached calmly, as if saying, "Now you understand." He looked at the puppies, who were curiously watching him, but without fear, said Ison with a voice full of emotion. He leaned down, spread his hand and, one by one, the puppies came closer, moving their tails. A good time passed there, watching the interaction between Bella, the puppies, and the herd. It was clear that they formed a kind of community where each one had their role. Ison felt a mixture of relief and admiration. Bella was not just a smart dog. She was an extraordinary mother who would do anything to protect her family. While returning to the farm, Ison was certain. Bella had taught him an important lesson about courage, sacrifice, and loyalty. He knew that the puppies were ready to return, but above all, it was clear that Bella had never stopped taking care of them, even from a distance. The mystery was finally solved, and Ison could not be more grateful for having trusted her. After discovering where the puppies were and understanding Bella's actions, Ison began to see the herd with new eyes. Those dogs were not just any group, they were a real family, led by Bella. They not only protected the puppies, but also seemed to watch Ison's farm. It was as if Bella had created an invisible alliance between them and the farmer. The following days, Ison spent more time observing the herd. He realized that each dog had a function. There were some that remained on guard, and others who seemed to take care of the puppies, teaching them to defend themselves and even to hunt small animals. Bella was the heart of all this. Always vigilant, she gave signals to the other dogs with low barks or subtle movements that they continued without a doubt. Ison could not help but feel a deep respect for that group. It was impressive how they worked so well together, as if they were part of something bigger. She began to leave extra food near the limit of the forest, as a way to thank what they had done for him and for the continuous protection they offered to the farm. The herd seemed to understand. Whenever Ison appeared, they kept their distance, but never showed hostility. It was a mutual respect relationship. One day, while working repairing a fence, Ison noticed something curious. Bella was sitting on a hill nearby, from where the entire farm could be seen. It seemed to be analyzing the terrain as if it were verifying that everything was safe. She smiled at herself, thinking how she had assumed the role of protector. Since Bella and the herd appeared, Ison felt safer, as if she knew she was not alone, even in the darkest nights. What impressed Ison the most was the growth of the puppies. They were no longer those small, fragile creatures that he had rescued. With the care of the herd, they were becoming stronger and safer. Max was almost the size of Bella and showed signs of being a natural leader. Bella was the link between both worlds, and Ison began to realize that, as well as he had rescued Bella, she had also rescued him, bringing life, protection, and purpose back to his home. One afternoon, while he was working in the fields, Ison heard footsteps in the distance. He left his tools and followed the sound, already realizing that something important was happening. It was an impressive vision. They were all there, aligned, as if they were waiting for him. Bella approached Ison and rubbed her snout against her hand, a gesture that she interpreted as a thank you. She leaned down and caressed her head, feeling a mixture of pride and melancholy. I knew that moment was special, as if Bella was saying goodbye in some way. With a voice full of emotion, Ison said, "The puppies, now practically adults, were ready to live in the forest next to the herd." It was evident that this was their destiny. But Ison also knew that Bella would never go away completely. She was the bridge between the wild world and the safe home that Ison had offered them. In the following months, Bella continued to go and come from the forest. She made regular visits to the farm, but always accompanied by Max or another of the dogs, as if she wanted to show that her puppies were fine and learning to lead the herd. Ison felt proud every time he saw them. They were no longer the fragile puppies he had rescued, but strong, brave, and independent dogs, ready to face the world. Then the unexpected moment came when he changed everything. While patrolling the property, Ison was trapped under a tree that fell during a storm. Only, without anyone nearby, he tried all possible ways to free himself, but the situation seemed impossible. With time, he began to lose hope. It was then that he heard the sound he already knew so well. Snakes. First one, then another, until the whole herd appeared running from the forest. Led by Bella and Max, with an impressive determination, the dogs began to dig and push the tree, working together to free Ison. He, excited and speechless, realized that that herd not only saw him as a friend, but as part of his family. When they finally managed to get him out of there, Ison fell on his knees, hugging Bella and Max, with tears rolling down his cheeks. "They saved my life again," he said with a broken voice because of the emotion. After that day, the connection between Ison and the herd became even stronger. Bella and her children continued to protect the farm, But they also taught Eisen a lesson that he would never forget. The strength of the union, the importance of loyalty, and the power to return the good that we received. The farm was never again just an isolated property. It became a shared home where the wild and the domestic coexisted in harmony. For Eisen, beautiful and shabby would always be more than dogs. They were a living reminder that, even in the most difficult moments, courage and loyalty can transform everything. Thank you very much for watching the video until the end. Leave a comment telling what you thought of this story. Like the video and subscribe to the channel to continue watching stories like this.